Hi, this clip is an illustration of some basic ideas surrounding inheritance. As introduced in Unit 6 of MT264. So I'm planning on just doing a very basic overview of it at this stage, possibly more later. This is really just to give you an idea of the sort of thing that you use inheritance for. Most of the point of inheritance is code reuse. So once you have written your code for a class and you have another class that's very similar to it, then you can just say, okay, I want to take all of these bits and then add something extra. The common mistake I find when you're looking at inheritance as a beginner is to think about it as the class is providing commonality. Whereas actually it's probably more useful to think of inheritance as the subclasses being having some form of specialization over the superclass. So there's lots of terminology in there, which hopefully I'll explain as we go on as part of this clip. So on screen you can see I've defined a book class with various properties, and we have a constructor there which takes 3 arguments. The properties are all read-only for my purposes. So when I'm looking at this, so this is going to be my superclass. So I'm going to have like a little library system on the go here. So book would be my superclass here, and what I've done is I've created an ebook. So the difference between an ebook and a book: an ebook is a book, but it also has a website, a URL associated to it, a website associated to it. So an ebook is a specialised version of a book. Within the course materials it tells you to think about an is-a relationship. So an ebook is a book, but provides all these extra little bits and bobs. So the way we do that in code is we use this inherits keyword. So we say an ebook is a book, but it also has the URL, so you'd have a field and a property that corresponds to the URL. You can see here that I've got a constructor which takes 4 arguments. The first 3 are going to be exactly the same as the book constructor, and then we've got URL on the end, which is the specific thing that's about an ebook. Now within VB you've got this MyBase thing. MyBase refers to the superclass, so the class that's above this one in the hierarchy. So in this case what this line does is it will call the constructor of the book, and you can pass parameters in. Generally within the course you would have the superclass having a constructor with no arguments, so you just call MyBase new. So within a subclass constructor you only need to set the things that aren't set within your superclass constructor. So for example in here I don't need to go worrying about setting author and title and things like that, because I know that the superclass deals with that itself. Similarly, if rather than in this case where we're giving it specific values, if defaults are set by the superclass, then you don't need to set them again in the subclass. The superclass just deals with it. So that's a very simple implementation of inheritance by just adding that extra URL property. There's all sorts of other things we could do to extend book. One other thing I wanted to have a quick look at is I've defined book admin class. Now within here I've defined a dictionary that contains books. Now don't worry, because we've got a dictionary that contains objects. Is exactly the same thing as having a dictionary of strings that's keyed on strings. So in this case we've got a dictionary of books that's keyed on the title of the book. Now one thing I wanted to point out, because I think it's quite an important concept here, is I can create a new book, which as you remember is a superclass. So this is the stuff that has all the generic behaviour in it, and I can add that to my fbooks dictionary, which as you remember is a dictionary of books. However, what I can also do is down here we're defining an ebook, so it's defined as an ebook, but I can also add that to my books dictionary. So remember that is our relationship, so ebook is a book, so I can add it to a dictionary of books. So you can always use superclasses of your subclasses. So it'll always work as long as you're going up rather than down. Do be careful when you're thinking about class hierarchies. As I said before, it's easy to think about common elements rather than specialities, and it's much easier if you start thinking about specialities. If you find that when you're writing a subclass you're having to override all of the methods of the superclass, the chances are it doesn't really fit within the object hierarchy that you've got. So do be a bit careful. It's sort of related to, if you look up polymorphism on Wikipedia or the internet somewhere, you'll find inheritance, and you'll also find interfaces, which I've covered in a previous clip. Interfaces are really about implementing common behaviour when the classes aren't really related to each other, whereas inheritance is a bit of a stronger thing, so the classes have to be related to each other in some way. So be careful about making some sort of fake inheritance hierarchy. If no relationship exists, then your class doesn't sit within your hierarchy. There might be a little hint for the TMA in there. So I hope that's vaguely useful. The code is available for this. If you send me a message, I can get it sent to you, but it's fairly straightforward, and you can have a little play with that. But I would advise that you go away and try and think up your own examples of inheritance and keep them very simple, as I've done here. Within the course there are lots of complicated examples, which I think don't necessarily illustrate the sort of very basic principles, and you need to get the basic principles sorted before you start looking at all the complicated stuff. So I hope that's helpful. Do let me know if there's anything else you'd like covered, and thanks for watching.